At 9:17 on the morning of January 22nd, 1943, Second Lieutenant John George crouches in the ruins of a Japanese bunker west of Point Cruz, Guadalcanal, watching a banyan tree 240 yards away through a scope his fellow officers have laughed at for 6 weeks. He is 27 years old, the youngest man ever to win the Illinois State Rifle Championship at 1,000 yards. But after 6 weeks on Guadalcanal, he has 0 confirmed kills. His commanding officer, Captain Morris, called the rifle a toy. The other platoon leaders called it his mail-order sweetheart. When George unpacked the Winchester Model 70 with its Lyman Alaskan scope and Griffin and Howe mount at Camp Forest in Tennessee, the armorer wanted to know if it was meant for deer or Germans. George explained it was for the Japanese. They shipped out before the rifle arrived. George spent the voyage to Guadalcanal watching other men clean their Garands, while his own weapons sat in a warehouse in Illinois. He requested it forwarded through military mail. 6 weeks later, a supply sergeant handed him a wooden crate marked fragile. Inside was the rifle he had saved 2 years of National Guard pay to buy. The rifle weighs 9 pounds. The scope adds another 12 ounces. The Garand issued to every other man in his battalion weighs 9 pounds 12 ounces with no magnification. George's rifle is bolt action with 5 rounds. The Garand is semi-automatic with 8. Captain Morris ordered him to leave the sporting rifle in his tent and carry a real weapon. George carried it anyway. In the next 3 days, that mail-order rifle would kill every Japanese sniper in the Point Cruz groves. The 132nd Infantry Regiment relieved the Marines on Guadalcanal in late December 1942. The Marines had been fighting since August. They had taken Henderson Field, they had held it, but they had not cleared the Japanese from the coastal groves west of the Matanikau River. George's battalion attacked Mount Austin on December 17th. 500 Japanese soldiers, 47 bunkers, a hill 1,514 feet tall. They fought for 16 days. They lost 34 killed and 279 wounded before they finally took the western slope on January 2nd. By then, George had fired his Winchester exactly 0 times in combat. The jungle around Point Cruz was different. No bunkers, no fixed positions, just Japanese soldiers who had retreated west from Henderson Field and dug into the massive banyan trees. Some of those trees reached 90 feet tall with trunks 8 feet thick. A sniper could climb one before dawn and sit there all day without being seen. Some of those soldiers were snipers. They carried scoped Arisaka Type 98 rifles. They knew the jungle. They knew how to wait. On January 19th, a sniper killed Corporal Davis while he was filling canteens at a creek. On January 20th, another sniper killed 2 men from L Company during a patrol. On January 21st, 3 more men died. One of them was shot through the neck from a tree the patrol had walked past twice. 14 Americans dead in 72 hours. The battalion commander summoned George that night. He was losing men faster than malaria could take them. He needed someone who could shoot. He wanted to know if that mail-order rifle could actually hit anything. George explained his credentials. 6-inch groups at 600 yards with iron sights. 5 rounds inside 4 inches at 300 yards with the Lyman Alaskan. The commander gave him until morning to prove it. George spends the night cleaning the Winchester. The rifle had been packed in cosmolin for the ocean voyage. The thick petroleum smell fills the tent as he strips it again. His fingers are black with grease by the time he finishes the bolt assembly. He checks the scope mounts, adjusts the eye relief, loads 5 rounds of .30-06 hunting ammunition, military ball ammo, the same cartridge the Garand fires. At dawn on January 22nd, George moves into the captured bunker. No spotter, no radio man. Just his rifle, a canteen, and 60 rounds in stripper clips. He settles in and begins scanning the trees through the Lyman Alaskan scope. 2.5 power magnification. Not much, but enough to see movement in the branches that the naked eye would miss. The jungle is never silent. Birds, insects, the distant sound of artillery. George filters out the noise and focuses on movement. He glasses the trees slowly, left to right, top to bottom. At 9:17, he sees it. A branch moves. No wind, just a small shift. 87 feet up in a banyan tree, 240 yards away. George watches. The branch moves again. Then he sees the shape. A man in dark clothing, positioned in a fork where 3 branches met. The Japanese sniper faces east, watching the trail where George's battalion moves supplies. George adjusts his scope. 2 clicks right for wind, controls his breathing. The Winchester's trigger is glass smooth, 3.2 pounds. He spent hours adjusting it at Camp Perry before the war. Now he will find out if a civilian target rifle can kill a man trained to kill him first. He squeezes the trigger. The Winchester kicks into his shoulder. The sound cracks through the jungle. 240 yards away, the Japanese sniper jerks and falls. He drops through the branches. 90 feet, hits the ground near the base of the banyan tree. George works the bolt. The empty cartridge ejects. He chambers another round, keeps his scope on the trees. Japanese snipers work in pairs. 1 shooter, 1 spotter. The spotter is close. He scans the surrounding banyans. The scope's magnification forces him to search slowly. Each tree can hide multiple men. At 9:43, he finds the second sniper. Different tree, 60 yards north. This one is lower, maybe 50 feet up, and moving down the trunk. Retreating. He heard the shot, knows his position is compromised. The lieutenant aims, leads the movement, fires. The second sniper falls backwards off the tree. His rifle clatters through the branches ahead of him. 2 shots, 2 kills, 58 rounds remaining. George reloads from a stripper clip. His hands are steady, his breathing controlled. This is no different than shooting at Camp Perry, except the targets shoot back. But George isn't celebrating. He is already scanning the next tree. At 11:21, a Japanese bullet strikes the sandbag 6 inches from George's head. The impact sprays dirt into his face. He rolls left, presses himself against the bunker wall. The shot came from the southwest, a different direction than the first 2 snipers. The marksman waits 3 minutes before moving. He finds the third sniper at 11:38. Same tree he relocated to after firing. A mistake. He puts the crosshairs on the dark shape. Fires. The third sniper falls without a sound. By noon, George has killed 5 Japanese snipers. 12 rounds fired. 48 remaining against 6 snipers who now know someone is hunting them. Word spreads through the battalion. Men who mocked his mail-order rifle now ask if they can watch him work. George refuses. Spectators draw attention. Attention draws fire. If you want to see how George's civilian hunting rifle performed against the last 6 Japanese snipers, trained killers who now knew his name, his weapon, and his position, please hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories like this. And please subscribe if you haven't already. Back to George. The Japanese adapt after the 5th kill. They stop moving during daylight. George spends the afternoon glassing trees and seeing nothing. He returns to battalion headquarters at 1600 hours. Captain Morris wants numbers. He reports 5 confirmed kills. The mockery is gone from Morris's voice. He wants George back in position at dawn. January 23rd begins with heavy tropical rain that turns the jungle floor into mud and makes the trees invisible beyond 100 yards. The air smells like wet earth and rotting vegetation. The lieutenant sits in the bunker and waits. The rain stops at 08:15. Enough visibility returns by 08:45. He spots the first sniper of the day at 9:12. This one climbed into position during the rain. Smart. The sound of rain masks movement. And he chose a tree 290 yards out. Longer range than yesterday. Also smart. They are learning his capabilities. George compensates for distance. Fires. Kill number 6. The Japanese noticed. 6 snipers dead in 2 days, all from the same direction. They stopped sending men into the trees and started calculating angles. At 09:57, Japanese mortars begin hitting the area around his bunker. They have triangulated his position from muzzle flash or sound. The first salvo lands 40 yards short. The second salvo lands 20 yards short. The third salvo will hit. George grabs his rifle and runs. He sprints north along the tree line and dives into a shell crater as the third salvo hits. The bunker he occupied moments before disappears in explosions and flying debris. The dynamic has changed. The Japanese are not just hiding anymore, they are hunting him back. This is no longer target shooting. This is a duel. George relocates to a fallen tree 120 yards north, settles in, resumes his watch. At 14:23, he kills his 7th sniper. At 15:41, his 8th. This one is 94 feet up a banyan. Good concealment, but the height creates a silhouette against the sky when the sun angle changes. George has been in position for 9 hours. His uniform is soaked through with sweat. His shoulder aches from holding the Winchester against the fallen tree. His knees are raw from crawling through coral and mud. He can feel the salt drying on his face where the sweat has dried and cracked. He had fired 20 rounds and had 40 remaining. 8 snipers dead, but 3 still out there. That night, George cleans his Winchester and considers the mathematics. Those 3 would be the best, the ones who had survived the longest. They know exactly what the American looks like. They know his rifle, they know his approximate position, and they have watched 8 men die in 2 days. George loads 5 fresh rounds and tries to sleep. At 0:03 Dao, he gives up and sits in his tent with the rifle across his lap. The tropical night is humid and still. Somewhere in the darkness, 3 men are planning how to kill him. January 24th. George chooses a new position. A cluster of large rocks the Marines used as a machine gun nest back in December, 70 yards south of his previous spot, a place the Japanese will not expect. At 8:17, he finds sniper number 9, a palm tree, 190 yards out. Low, only 40 feet up. Unusual. Most snipers climb high for better sightlines. This one chose concealment over elevation. The palm fronds create a natural hide invisible from ground level. But George is not at ground level. He is elevated on the rocks. The angle gives him a view down into the fronds. He can see the dark shape of the sniper's shoulders and head. George aims, controls his breathing, begins to squeeze the trigger. Then he stops. Something is wrong. The position is too obvious, too easy. George has been hunting snipers for 3 days. He has killed 8 men. The remaining 3 would not make elementary mistakes. They would not position themselves where an elevated shooter could spot them, not unless it was bait. He lowers his rifle and scans the surrounding trees. If the sniper in the palm is bait, the real shooter is positioned to cover him, watching for anyone who takes the shot, waiting for muzzle flash. The lieutenant glasses every tree within 300 yards of the palm, methodically, left to right, top to bottom. It takes 11 minutes. At 8:28, he finds the real threat. A banyan tree, 80 yards northwest of the palm, 91 feet up. Branches and vines conceal the sniper from 3 sides. He has a clear line of sight to George's previous position at the fallen tree. He is waiting for George to appear there or to take the shot at the bait. George has 2 problems. First, if he fires at the real sniper, the sound reveals his position. The sniper relocates before he can work the bolt. Second, if he does nothing, the sniper will eventually realize George is not at the fallen tree and begin searching for him. Standard doctrine said, leave the bait, report the position, call for support. Training said, never engage when the enemy has overwatch on your location. Common sense said wait. George had other plans. The lieutenant decides to use the bait against them. He aims at the decoy sniper in the palm, adjusts for wind, fires. The decoy jerks and falls. George immediately swings his rifle toward the banyan tree, 91 feet up. The real sniper reacts to the shot, turns toward the sound. That turn creates movement. He sees it. A slight shift. He puts the crosshairs on the dark shape and fires before the sniper can fully turn. Both fall. 2 shots, 2 kills. But George has revealed his position to anyone else watching. He grabs his rifle and runs, moves east along the rock line, drops into a drainage ditch 40 yards away, presses himself into the mud. 6 seconds later, Japanese machine gun fire rakes the rocks where he sat. Bullets kick up dust and stone fragments. The fire lasts 17 seconds. George relocates again. A water-filled shell crater 100 yards east. He lowers himself in, water up to his chest, cold and brown. Rests the Winchester on the crater rim. 10 confirmed kills. 24 rounds fired, 36 remaining. 1 sniper left. The 11th sniper would be the best of them, the smartest and most experienced. He has watched 10 of his comrades die over 3 days. He knows George's tactics. He knows George's rifle. And somewhere in those trees, he is watching, waiting, planning. George scans the jungle through his scope. The Lyman Alaskan magnification makes distant shapes visible but not identifiable. Every dark spot could be a branch or a man. He studies each one. At 0947, he realizes his mistake. The 11th sniper is not in the trees. He is on the ground, and he is moving toward George. George catches the movement at the edge of his peripheral vision. 60 yards south, low to the ground. A shape moving through the undergrowth. Ferns, vines, fallen branches. The Japanese sniper uses the jungle floor for cover, crawling parallel to the tree line. He is heading toward George's last known position at the rocks. George remains motionless in the water. The Winchester is shouldered, but the angle is wrong. The crater rim blocks his view. Rising up would expose him. The Japanese sniper stops at 0952, 40 yards from the rocks, studies them, searches for movement, then starts moving again. 35 yards, 30, 25. He approaches from the south, the exact route George used when he evacuated under machine gun fire. George understands the tactic. The sniper watched the machine gun attack. He knows the American moved east. He is now working along the most likely escape route, hunting his target the way his target has been hunting him. At 10:03, the Japanese sniper reaches the rocks, takes a position facing east toward the drainage ditch, toward the area where George should have relocated. His back is exposed to the lieutenant's actual position in the water-filled crater. 38 yards. An easy shot even without a scope. But George hesitates. This sniper has survived 10 days of American operations in the Point Cruz groves. He has outlived 10 other snipers, men who died because they made mistakes. This man does not make mistakes. The position in the rocks is too exposed, too vulnerable. No experienced sniper would remain there for more than a few seconds. This has to be another bait position. George keeps his scope on the sniper in the rocks, but expands his awareness to the surrounding area. At 10:06, he finds it. A second Japanese soldier, 70 yards northwest, crouched behind a fallen tree. Not moving, not repositioning, just watching. His rifle aimed toward the drainage ditch where the marksman should be hiding. 2 men, not 1. George cannot shoot both before they react. The bolt-action Winchester requires him to work the action between shots. That gives them time to locate him and return fire. The lieutenant slowly lowers himself deeper into the water, submerges until only his eyes and the top of his head remain above the surface, keeps the Winchester pointed skyward to keep water out of the barrel, and waits. At 10:13, the Japanese soldier in the rocks stands up. He has spent 10 minutes watching the drainage ditch and seen nothing. He believes the American moved farther east. He signals to his partner. Both men begin moving east. Parallel, 70 yards apart. A sweep formation. They pass George's crater. Their backs are exposed. George rises from the water, slowly, silently. Water drips from the barrel, from his uniform, from his face. The cold hits his skin where the humid air meets wet cloth. He aims at the closer soldier. 42 yards. Fires. The soldier drops, works the bolt, chambers another round, swings toward the second man. The second soldier is turning, raising his rifle. George fires first. 11 shots fired over 3 days. 11 Japanese snipers dead. George has cleared the Point Cruz groves of the threat that killed 14 Americans in 72 hours. But George isn't finished. As he climbs out of the crater and retrieves his spent cartridges, he hears a sound that makes him freeze. Voices, Japanese voices, multiple men moving toward the fallen soldiers. An infantry patrol, 6 or more, coming for the bodies. They find his boot prints in the mud. George drops back into the crater. 5 rounds in the Winchester. 6 Japanese soldiers at minimum. Poor odds for a bolt-action rifle. He fights his way out. 3 more kills. Runs 90 seconds through the jungle. Vines catching his boots. Branches whipping his face. Rifle fire cracking past his ears. He reaches American lines at 11:13 with 2 rounds left. Captain Morris wants a full debrief. George provides it. 11 snipers over 4 days. 12 rounds fired against the snipers. 11 hits. Then a firefight with infantry. 3 more kills. 5 rounds total in that engagement. Morris asks about ammunition status. George is down to 2 rounds. Morris asks about the rifle. George says it needs cleaning. Mud in the action. Water in the barrel. Morris's response is not about cleaning. He wants to know if George can train other men to do what he has done. George creates a 16-team sniper section from 40 expert marksmen, trains them in 3